Hey, SpeakEasy Podcast listeners. So, you're probably going to hear like an abundance of excitement in my voice right now because I'm excited about this episode for a few different reasons. So, I am born and raised Philadelphia, city girl. Listen, listen, North Philadelphia, born and raised. Yeah, that whole thing, right? It's a thing. But for the last 11 years, I've lived in a smaller town that has a lot of farmland. And it's allowed me, to kind of look at things a little differently. But it also made me do some research and go and kind of learn some things. Yes, I am in a small town that still does tractor pulls, and they do a county fair with animals, not just rides. So I love being here, but I also love the lessons. And there's a certain culture here that farmers bring to business. And so I'm excited about this episode because when my guest for today told me one of the things that he did, it made my ears perk up immediately. It'll probably make yours perk up too, because he's the first one in this industry to be on the SpeakEasy podcast. Yeah, he's the first. He's the first. With that being said, hello, Rick. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me be first.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So, Rick, tell the studio audience a little bit about yourself, and then I'm going to dive into why I'm so excited about this episode.
Well, there's a lot of different angles, and the stuff that caught your interest was the fact that I have, or probably the last 20 years, I've been raising beef cattle. Mostly I raise bulls that I sell to other farmers who will breed their cows with my bulls to have their own calves. I'm also the adoptive parent of a sibling group of 4 kids. I make most of my money in corporate America. I have a degree in engineering, but I also have a master's and doctoral degree in ministry. I spent 10 years in professional ministry. So I've done a little bit of everything. And one of the things I have certainly learned about agriculture in my 20 years is that it's very hard to make a living. So in the meantime, I'm still working my day job. I'm the author of a book called Shame Unmasked that sort of details how I've seen shame working in agriculture and corporate America and ministry and in my life as an adoptive parent as well. Kind of a broad-based structure there.
Now, there are several different things that he said that just resonate so much with me as a woman that's done kinship care for my sister. That resonates with me. My mother actually did foster care, so of course, that I have a heart for it. But then when he talked about the cattle, guys, some of you may have heard about the whole Buddy the Beefalo, and no, Buddy was not his, but some of the discussions that came up after that were, with them raising the money, what were they raising the money for? And it made me kind of go, oh, that's right. People don't realize that this is a business. Raising animals, farming, it is a business. And so as entrepreneurs, we kind of pull ourselves away and say, but no, that's farming. It's not business, but it is. And so, with that being said, talk about the business side of that a little bit, because I think a lot of people, again, they kind of see this like this defining line and separation simply because it's a different type of business structure.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the reasons I actually got into the cattle business that I'm in was to support myself as a business while I was in ministry. I was a pastor of a very small congregation that did not have a lot of resources. So my goal was to leave corporate America, which I did for 10 years while I was launching this church. But to help supplement what the church was able to pay me, I had to start this business. And it very much was like a new business startup in every sense of the word. The heartaches trying to learn what sort of cattle you buy, what sort of cattle work well on your pasture, and then you also have to say, what sort of cattle will somebody else buy from you, And you can't just have red cattle if red cattle won't sell in your market, and they won't sell in my market. So and there was a lot of research that had to go into, and really I put together a business plan like you would for any other business, for the cost, the inputs, and who my market was, and how I would develop that market in order to, at the end of the day, make money to support myself while I was in ministry.
That part. And so some of you, your ears just perked up because you said, wait, that sounds like what I did with my business. Like, I started my business to supplement what I was doing at my job, or, to supplement this, or to pay for my kids' college. And some of you are literally thinking and right now going, oh, wait, we have some things in common. And that's why I was really excited about this episode, because it goes right into a piece that is not often talked about in any business, and that's the shame. When we think about entrepreneurship, there is a lot of shame that comes with achieving and not achieving some of the milestones that we have in business. And then when we think about raising cattle and being in farming, there's some of that same shame. And we talked a little bit about it before we started the episode about, some of the things that go on when we have that shame. Can bring that conversation back for me.
You're reminding me, if you don't mind me telling a story, you're reminding me, it reminds me of one year where I was trying a different calving season, and it was a disaster. And I think that year I lost 25% of my calves. And I'm an animal lover. And so watching an animal die, a calf especially, was brutal. But furthermore, I think what entrepreneurs face when they launch into something brand new like this is you will fail. And I could see in hindsight, I could look back and I could see all the mistakes I made. And the problem with shame as an entrepreneur is that when you make mistakes, and you will make mistakes, when you make a mistake, what shame tries to convince you of is that you personally are a mistake. When you do something stupid, and you will do plenty of stupid stuff starting a business, but when you do something stupid, shame tries to say, hey, because you did something stupid, that means that you are stupid. And then the real risk we have here is that we'll quit. And we'll take shame at face value, and we'll say, I personally am too stupid. I'm too much of a failure. And this thing, maybe it's important to us financially. Maybe it's a true passion we have for a small business, for what we're working on. The true loss will come when we actually quit, because we tend to believe what shame is telling us rather than the truth. And the truth is, startups are hard. We will fail. But that's all part of the learning and growing process that we all have in any entrepreneurial exercise. And that we're all learning, we're all growing, and it's just part of the process. And it's nothing about you in particular. So you really have shame presents you with two options. You either overcome it and you press on towards a lifelong learning experience, or you quit and it's just over.
I love that you said that, because a lot of times for entrepreneurs, they quit.
They quit.
And, not only do they quit, but then there's this like emptiness, because it's like, that really was your passion. That really was your heart. That really was something that you wanted to do. So now you have like this void, because you're like, well, what do I fill that with? What do I put in that space? And that adds to the shame, because now you're like, oh, I gave up on my dreams.
Yeah. If you do research on entrepreneurial and startup suicide rates, you'll see that the suicide rates for entrepreneurs and startup founders is much higher than anybody ever expected. And it's partly because that voice of failure, which will happen, that voice of failure is so strong, and you feel so responsible and such a failure as a result of it, especially if you're just not able to do it anymore, and quitting is that it becomes just an overwhelming burden. And they've just now are coming out with the research showing just the implications that it can have on the rest of your life, and the potential of even taking your own life as a result of this.
True indeed. True indeed. SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, this is why I told you that this particular interview, this conversation was going to be a powerful one, because again, like I said, this came into the light because of, Buddy the beefalo and so many other things that are coming to light agriculturally. I think that there are some documentaries out that are kind of shining a light more on what those in the farming industry are, what they deal with when it comes to the business side. So this is it. It really is a fight. It is a fight when it comes to being successful in your industry. And so in knowing all of this that goes on behind the scenes, what has kept you going throughout this time, especially with everything going on in the last year?
There's actually a couple pieces on that, and one of them is that the world needs food. I mean, we can't shake that reality. And so one of the things that I understand and hope about myself is that I am, in as responsible a way as possible, I am providing food for people, myself included. And it matters, you know? And I think one of the things that shame attempts to separate people from each other. And right now, one of the goals that shame has is to separate the consumers from the producers, so that we're fighting each other. And I see it from both sides. I also see the agricultural community fighting against the consumer, trying to get being defensive about the tax the consumer is laying on them, when the only real way out of this, because we all need to eat, is to figure out how to work together for the betterment of the environment, animal husbandry, and to make a profitable experience for farmers so that they can stay in business, because it matters to all of us that farmers stay in business.
I love that you said that, because I think when we can own that statement that there's someone that needs me,
Yes.
and it puts a different burning and desire on the inside of you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and people can, the food can be plant matter, it can be animal matter. I have no qualms against people who are, vegetarians or vegans or whatever else. But the fact of the matter is, we have a certain environment, like my environment, the way my land is, simply could not grow plant-based food. It just does. The land is not set up that way. The land is set up perfectly to grow animal-based food. And I think as long as we in agriculture aren't being defensive all the time, if shame isn't making us be defensive, I think we can also study how we do things in the world to farm better, to farm smarter, so that we can all continue to share this world we're in, which we also need to do, and continue to sustain ourselves with food, plant and animal based.
This episode has been phenomenal. Guys, I told y'all it was going to be a good one. You're going to probably listen to this one at least a good 3-4 times. I'm probably going to listen to this one at least a good 3 or 4 times. Oh my goodness. SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, we as business owners need to understand that business is not just it's not just entrepreneurship, it's not just e-commerce, it's not just, there's so many things that we can understand if we look at the businesses that are even around us. Some of you may have people that are in different industries that you never would have even thought of it being an industry when you were in school. You think about it and go, that's a job? That's a real thing. Yes, that is very much a real thing. And I say that because as a city girl, yes, I knew that there were farms. I knew that people had farmland, but I didn't see the significance of their piece to everybody's success. And it's not until we have conversations like the one we're having on this episode that we see each other's significance to everyone's success. It's these conversations that give us insight to be able to say, okay, so how do we make each other better?
Yeah.
How do we make each other better? So with that being said, as we head out, I cannot let you leave this episode without getting, I know you have at least one funny story with raising cattle. You got to share with us at least one story that has kind of been like seared into your mind in this whole process.
Yeah, that when you said that, I can't pick a particular incident, but the one thing that I had to learn how to do that I had no training in, no understanding of, is how to remove a calf from a cow when it wasn't coming out on its own. And I tell you what, every entrepreneur has this experience. The one thing nobody ever trained them how to do, And for me, it was actually to reach up, into my shoulder, into this cow, and feel around for this calf. Is this the head? Is it coming out the way it should? Is it coming breech? And to make sure that the front legs were coming out. And it's like, I'm sure people do train people in this, but it's one of those things when you're an entrepreneur, if you don't learn how to do certain things you have to, because if you don't, something's going to die, figuratively or really, something's going to die. And so all of us as entrepreneurs, I think, face that experience of having to, in farmland, we call it sleeve up. Sleeve up means put on your big plastic sleeve, get in there and find out what's going on so you can get it fixed.
Oh my goodness. So I've only ever seen that in movies. And it's never been with any other animal except a horse.
Oh yeah.
I just realized that it's only been in like a movie that has a horse. Yep. But I guess in our minds, we just don't realize that it happens more often than not. No. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's an experience for you.
Yep. A lot of lessons there, though. A lot of lessons. Yes. No matter who you are or where you are in life, eventually you're going to have to sleeve up and take care of the job.
That's it. I love it. Oh my goodness. SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, a great episode. Make sure that you reach out, get the book, read the book, and review the book. Rick, let them know how they can get the book and also how they can connect with you if they have any other questions.
Yep. It's on Amazon. Is the quickest way to do it. You can just go on to Amazon and type in Shame Unmasked. You can type my name. It'll pop up. That's a great place for you to put your review. And in the book there, it'll actually tell you how to find me on the web, rickpattersonconnects.com.
I love it, guys. This is what it's all about. We're expanding our capacity to understand what success really looks like, what entrepreneurship really looks like. And for those of you, again, that listen in and you're within your first 5 years of business, this is what it is. You may have to learn how to sleeve up along the way. I appreciate each and every one of you, because without the SpeakEasy listeners, there would be no SpeakEasy Podcast. So as your host, Altovise Pelzer, I am signing off. And until next time, guys, you have a great, great